We're going to be starting on page 151, continuing our education in the real cause of global warming. So, as we're reading tonight, we're going to be covering quite a few articles. Most of the class is going to be going over articles. But remember that as we're reading these articles, that science is just now becoming aware of the things that Yahweh inspired his prophets and taught his prophets and his righteous men years and years and years ago, thousands of years ago. Okay, these men, the men of Yahweh, knew these things. The people of Yahweh knew these things before the invention of microscopes and things like that. They knew how Yahweh created things, and they were taught how, to live life, to make sure that they didn't bring curses or, the sicknesses and diseases upon themselves. So just remember that these articles are supporting what Yahweh has done, okay? So at the top of page 151 in the second column where it says, huge microbe community may live deep under ocean floor. And this is Andrea Mustaine, and the date is December 9th, 2010. A hidden ecosystem teeming with microbial life deep inside the earth could be far more vast than suspected, operating entirely without input from the sun, according to new research. Scientists have found the organic signatures of this strange microbial world in the warm fluid that slowly circulates through basalt, porous rock buried deep under the ocean floor. These microbes live without sunlight or photosynthesis. They get their energy from the rocks, and they get their carbon from the fluid around them, said Matthew McCarthy, Associate Professor of Ocean Sciences at the University of California, Santa Cruz. Instead of looking for the microbes themselves, McCarthy said, he and his team retrieved and studied molecules dissolved in the warm stew of liquid percolating through the basalt because that hydrothermal fluid and the molecules it contains are chock full of clues about a larger microbe civilization. Okay, so they're seeing that there's a lot of life in areas where they didn't know life existed before, and they're self-sustaining. Okay, they operate completely on their own. When you look at the microbes, they tend to tell you about what's going on right at the spot where you're sampling, McCarthy told our magazine Planet. The dissolved molecules tend to be the leftovers of entire ecosystems. What's in there is basically a fingerprint for these huge systems under the crust. And it is precisely the possible scale of these microbial ecosystems that's the real surprise, McCarthy said. It's well established that life can go on independent of help from the surface world. Sparse microbial communities appear to dwell in rocks far deeper than basalt. Other extremophiles are known to thrive in the boiling, acidic conditions in hydrothermal ocean vents. Not only does this hidden ecosystem appear to operate entirely on its own, it appears to be sending organic molecules up into the ocean. Okay, so again, there's a lot of things going on that science is just finding out about how the earth works, how Yahweh created life, created these kingdoms, these micro kingdoms, and they have specific jobs to do. Okay, they have specific jobs that they're doing. And remember, we covered in the book earlier how these things are set by law. They have specific assignments and they do them. Okay, this is what their jobs are, and they do them. And the only time they don't do their job, which is what we're learning, is when we do things that create sickness and disease that keeps them from doing what they were created to do. And we are going to, time permitting, we're going to cover some of those things this evening. So the next article, it says 10 million viruses in one drop of seawater. Okay, 10 million viruses in one drop of seawater. And this University of California in Santa Barbara. So viruses will fill the ocean and have a significant effect on ocean biology, according to a new study that reveals striking recurring patterns of marine viral plankton dynamics in the open sea. Microbial infections between Oceanic viruses and bacteria take place on the nanometer scale, but are extremely important in governing the flow of energy and the cycling of nutrients like carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus on the ecosystem scale of the world's ocean, says Craig A. Carlson, a professor of ecology, evolution, and marine biology at the University of California, University of California, Santa Barbara, who has studied microbes in the water column of the Sargasso Sea off of Bermuda for a decade. But did you get the point here? One of them is at the very top. It says microbial interactions between oceanic viruses and bacteria take place on the nanometer scale, but are extremely important in governing the flow of energy. Okay, so it governs. These things are again, they are created and they have a job. They govern the way the world works. It says here in the eco scale of the world systems. Okay, the whole ecosystem has things set in order so that it can be governed. Remember, we read earlier in the book also, and in the scriptures, where Yahweh created certain things that says this is the line or this is the border, you cannot go any further. And I wanted to find in one of these articles I remember reading quite a few classes ago, where it was talking about the weather patterns and how at some point certain things couldn't pass a certain area, but now because of man's interference, going all over, bringing things back and forth from this place to that place, how, one specific like bacteria or whatever it was that's supposed to be in one specific area was actually getting larger and spreading more across the world. And so all of these things, we have to remember, and we have to know how to guard against this spread of sickness and disease. We have to know how the earth works. And so my question to you is, how do you get the information? Let me rephrase this. When do you get the information so that you can learn how to guard and keep the things that Yahweh created? When do you get that information? I heard it. What was it? Sabbath days. And when else? In the feast, right? When you meet with Yahweh. Okay, this is when you learn these things, how the world works, how creation itself works, what governs life, what brings death. Okay, and science is just kind of getting a sneak peek at how things work, and they still don't see everything yet. Okay, so continuing on here, this is although we can't see them with our naked eye, marine microbes are the dominant life forms in our ocean, says Rachel J. Parsons, first author and a microbial oceanographer with the Bermuda Institute of Ocean Science. They comprise 95% of the living biomass in the oceans, more than the krill, fish, and whales put together. They grow at rates many times faster than larger animals. As a result of their sheer numbers and the rates at which they grow, they are responsible for transforming and shaping the distribution of life's essential elements, and they help control climate on our planet. Without marine microbes, life as we know it could not persist. Okay, well, it couldn't go on if it wasn't for these microbes, if it wasn't for this life that Yahweh created. Okay, and I remember, this was years ago, I remember listening to a meteorologist, and the hurricanes, it was a real bad hurricane season. And he said the problem with hurricanes, the reason why we're having so many hurricanes is because of the temperature, because it's so warm out. He said, he said that hurricanes are nature's thermostat. Okay, hurricanes are nature's thermostat. So when things get out of control, the earth has a way of getting things back in order. But look at the destruction that takes place because of things being set back in order. See, if we kept Yahweh's laws, then we wouldn't have to worry about things like, tsunamis and hurricanes and these things which gets the earth or the temperature, gets everything back in order. We wouldn't have to worry about those things. But because we continue to break these laws and continue to send sickness and disease by creating these things that brings death, when the earth tries to, to get itself straightened out, we suffer. Okay, we suffer. We create our own problems. So it says here that, notice the last paragraph in the previous article, microbes help control the climate, but harmful viruses are multiplying, and many of them attack rape, and mutate the friendly bacteria, beneficial to mankind's welfare on earth. When the bacteria is sickened, much like man when he is attacked by viruses he has created, they can no longer do their job efficiently. As the viruses increase, the bacteria causing oxygen to be produced for mankind and all of life on earth diminish. So too do mankind and all life on earth. Clouds provide atmospheric oases for microbes, estimated to total 10 to the 19th power of cells. Okay, so 10 to the 19th power, that's a 20-digit number. Okay, that's a 20-digit number. I don't even know what to call that except a 20-digit number. Okay, it's just 20 digits. That's a large number. And these are the cells here. It says microorganisms in clouds appear sufficient to affect physiochemical processes in the global atmosphere. And so Pierre Amato, this is Clermont Fernand in France. So author profile Amato, head in the clouds, investigating microbes, feet trending forested mountains. When thermodynamic conditions prove favorable in the atmosphere, water vapors condense on aerosol particle surfaces, forming micrometer-sized droplets or ice crystals constituting clouds. Even though clouds gather only 0.03% of the fresh water on Earth, they are important components of climate, acting as filters to solar and infrared radiation entering and leaving the planet. Moreover, they provide a multiphasic mixture of liquid, solid, and gas to support chemical reactions affecting the composition of the atmosphere. When scientists began collecting air samples at high altitudes from mountains, balloons, and later airplanes, they learned that living bacteria and fungi are present within the atmosphere. Because condensed water can protect airborne microbial cells against desiccation. Okay, and desiccation is extreme dryness. Okay, so it's saying here that it says, I'm going to read it again. It says, because condensed water can protect airborne microbial cells against extreme dryness, a global scale, aerial biologists consider clouds atmospheric oasis. So here you have water in the clouds, and these bacteria, they see this water, and then they go to it. Because where there's water, there's what? Life. Okay, there's life. Where there's water, there's life. And so these the fungi and these other, it says here, living bacteria and fungi, there's water in the clouds, and so they go to the clouds. And scientists are finding life in the clouds. But before the scientists discovered life in the clouds, so to speak, or finally seen this, where did you hear it from first? Exactly. You heard it from here, from the house of Yahweh, from Pastor. Okay, from the very beginning, we've heard about this life in this firmament. Okay, but again, science is now starting to back up what we've been learning for all of these years and what Yahweh's been teaching from the very beginning. On a global scale, the total number of microorganisms in clouds reaches about 10 to the 19th power. Although this estimate seems low compared with the 10 to the 25th power of microorganisms estimated to occupy lakes and rivers, and to the 10th to the 29th power of microorganisms in oceans, microbial levels in clouds appear sufficient to accept physiochemical processes in the atmosphere. Additionally, clouds could play a major role in disseminating microbes over long distances, okay? Spreading these things around. So we had 10 to the 26th and 10 to the 29th power. So again, the 10 to the 26th power is a 27-digit number, and 10 to the 29th power is a 30-digit number. So we're dealing with a lot of cells here. We're dealing with this is a large number. Okay, a large number. I'm glad if I see a 3-digit check, okay, or a 4-digit check. I'm glad to see 4 digits. Okay, so but we're talking about 30 digits here. 30 digits. If I ever see a 30-digit check, I'll probably have a stroke. But think about the numbers that we're dealing with here. And this is life. Okay, this is life here. That's what's so amazing about these things. The first line in the previous article says, when the thermodynamic conditions prove favorable, what would make these conditions unfavorable is more man-made, harmful viruses attacking the bacteria, the same way they attack mankind. And the second paragraph shows the estimate. So how microbes helped clean BP's oil spill. The microscopic organisms bloomed in the wake of the Macondo well disaster, and this was April 28th, 2015, by David Baello, or Baello, I don't know. Like cars, some microbes use oil as fuel. Microorganisms are a big reason why BP's 2010 oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico was not far worse. The microbes did a spectacular job of eating a lot of the natural gas, says biochemist Chris Reddy of the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So it's great that they gave credit to these microbes, okay, because this is what Yahweh created. The oil spill was a bad situation, but the way that Yahweh created the earth, mankind recognized that, look, the microbes helped. The way that the earth was created, it actually helped, keep this from being far worse than what it was. So continuing on here, it says the relatively small hydrocarbon molecules in natural gas are the easiest for microorganisms to eat. The rate and capacity is a mind-boggling testament to microbes, he adds. Ocean currents, in addition to keeping the spill off of shore, spurred microbial activity amidst the oil spill. That continuous mixing of the water allowed a bacterial bloom to turn millions of barrels of oil into an estimated 100 sextillion microbial cells of ethane-consuming, Caldwellia aromatic eating. All right, I'm about to Cycloclasticus alkane eating, Oceanospiralis oil eating. Okay. Anyway, at the end of all of this, it shows that there was a lot of unknown. It was at least one unknown. Let's see, including at least one previously unknown to science. And it's talking about these different microbes that were helping clean up this spill. Okay, so there's a lot of different microbes cleaning up this man-made mess. And it says, including one that science didn't even know about before. Okay, so again, science doesn't know everything. Science does not know everything. And I'm actually thinking about something that's written in Ecclesiastes right now. Let me find this really quick here. Ecclesiastes. Proverbs. Give me 1 second. Okay, so. Okay, here we go. I think this is it. Okay, so I'm reading this because, again, science doesn't know how Yahweh works. And so in Ecclesiastes 11, verse 5, it says, just as you do not know how the spirit comes to the bones in the womb of a pregnant woman, so you cannot know how Yahweh works in everything he does. Okay, you don't know how Yahweh works in everything he does, especially if you don't keep the Sabbath. If you don't meet with Yahweh, you have no idea. You have no idea. And the other scripture that I'm thinking about that goes with this is in Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3, verse 14. It says, I know that whatever Yahweh does, it will be forever. Nothing can be added to it, nor anything taken away. Yahweh acts, and men will give him reverence. Okay, Yahweh acts, and men will give him reverence. The way that Yahweh created things is perfect. And that's just the bottom line. It's perfect. Okay? And we have to understand how these things work. Yahweh teaches us how these things work so that we don't mess it up. And what we've been seeing for thousands of years is how to mess it up. We see exactly what takes place when you do not listen to Yahweh. And Solomon at the end of this, he said in Ecclesiastes 12:13, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Reverence Yahweh by observing his laws, for this is the whole duty of man. Okay, this is the whole duty of man. So in these last days, one of the blessings of being in Yahweh's house is seeing the complete plan of Yahweh, having all of the history to see how mankind has messed things up, okay, by not serving Yahweh, by not keeping these laws, and seeing how the scriptures are true, and how if we actually apply our minds to the learning and to the applying of the things that's written in the scriptures, how we will be blessed. Okay, and remember one of the examples, and there's rewards too, in the future if we qualify for these things. So there's not just the blessing of having eternal life and having peace, joy, and abundant living, but being called out in this time period, I'm not talking about the whole 6,000 year plan of Yahweh, being called out in this time period. We have an opportunity to receive, a position in the kingdom and to receive certain gifts. Remember when Yeshua was on a boat with some of the apostles, right? And Yeshua went to sleep, right? He wasn't worried about anything. And then there was a wind and waves. Remember the boat was like tossing and turning and things like that. This is in Matthew chapter 8. I just want to read this really quick because, this deals with the micro kingdom, but also deals with, as we're meeting with Yahweh and learning how these things work, the authority that Yahweh is going to turn over to mankind. And so that's why I want to read this. Matthew 8, starting in verse 23. When he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. Then a great storm suddenly arose on the sea, so that the boat was being swamped by the waves, but he was asleep. His disciples came to him and awoke him, saying, "Teacher, save us, we're going to drown." But he said to them, "Why are you fearful, O you of little faith?" Then he arose and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a great calm. And the men marveled, saying, "What kind of man is this, that the winds and the sea obey him?" Okay, what kind of a man is this that the winds and the sea obey him? He's a man of Yahweh. He's a man that learned the way of Yahweh, and the microbes listened to him. These kingdoms listened to him because he had the authority to tell them, this is what you need to do. Like Yahweh said, this is the border. Go no further. Yahweh gave him that authority. And so, man, what kind of a man is this? Yahweh's creating us all. He's training us all to be just like Yeshua. Okay? And so the important thing to develop is the character of Yahweh. Okay, you develop the character of Yahweh, and then you can continue to train and get this knowledge. But if you have this knowledge, but you don't have the character of Yahweh, then what does it benefit? Okay, so the character of Yahweh is important, and then Yahweh can give you the authority to govern, to guide, to be a blessing to creation. Okay, so you can't just study and then be a whole bunch of choice words towards your brother, a jerk, disrespectful, a bully. I know all of the secrets of the kingdom of heaven. I speak in the language of Malachim. But you have not what? Love. Remember that? What's that, Corinthians? You can have the gift of prophecy. You can have all of these different gifts. But if you have not love, this desire to have the character of Yahweh, if you don't have the character of Yahweh and teach those things, and be an example in that way, then it's useless. Satan was what? Wiser than Daniel. Satan was wiser than Daniel. She knew the plan of Yahweh. But what is that understanding? What does that get her if she's not doing or conducting herself the way that Yahweh conducts himself? Not guarding and keeping life. She was deceiving people and getting people to bring forth death. Okay? We have to be like Yahweh, man. We have to be like Yahweh in order for there to be life. If you're not like Yahweh, then there's no life. Continuing on here at the top of page 153, it says here, as you can see, the firmament is complicated. It's set by law to operate continually every second of the day and night to keep life possible for mankind on the earth. The firmament, like the bodies of mankind, animals, birds, fish, etc., are all made of micro kingdoms. And see, and that just reminded me of that scripture where it says, it's in Corinthians where the sun has one kind of glory, mankind has another glory. I think it even says fish have one kind of glory, but it's talking about how we're different. But, we're all made of the same things. We're all made up of these microorganisms, that are set by law again to make us the way that we are. Orange is like, I think that actually says it in here. And that's why it popped up in my mind right now. Like an orange is always going to be an orange. So if you have an orange tree, it's never going to like bring forth apples or grapes, you know, or rabbits. You know, it's not going to cross over like that. You know, an apple seed is always going to bring forth an apple tree. Okay, that's the way that it's created. So, you know, Pastor goes on and says that those are the things that we can depend on. Let me read. I'm running my mouth up here. All right, so here it says, let's see, trillions of microorganisms make up your body, so you can only imagine the number of kingdoms of microbes that make up the firmament. And we were just looking at some of those numbers, you know, some of those 30-digit numbers, you know, and that's only, you know, what they're aware of. Okay, that's only what they're aware of. The same microbes form the food we eat. They are set by law to form all things as originally designed and commanded by Yahweh. That is the reason the orange, there it is right there. That is the reason the orange we eat will always be an orange and not a rock. It has been set by law to follow that specific blueprint. When sickness is caused, Yahweh created the heavens, the earth, and mankind, gave us laws to follow, just as he gave set laws to the microbes that never change. Okay? And this is what we have to get in our minds. Okay? The way that Yahweh set things up will never change. We just read what Solomon said. I know that whatever Yahweh does, it will be what? Forever. Whatever Yahweh does, it will be forever. It will not change. Okay? It will not change. Yahweh's training us to guard and keep, protect, right? To guard and keep what he has created. Like, look, this is the only way that works. Now I need to set guards over it. I need captains of tens, hundreds, and thousands to guard and keep this way to make sure that no one suffers because of unbelief or because of sin and rebellion or whatever. We need people guarding and keeping the way that Yahweh created things. Here we are. Okay, here we are, learning how to guard and keep. But we have to realize that, look, it will never change. The way that Yahweh set it up, it will never change. Okay, you can't add to it. You can't take away from it. We just read it. Those are some of Yeshua's last words that he gave in Revelations. Okay, if you add to what's written in this book or take anything away from it, then your name's going to be taken out of this book, out of the book of life. And the curses are going to be added to you. You can't change what Yahweh has created. It's perfect. Have I said that too much? No. Okay, we have to understand that. So, and then Pastor says here, okay, so it will never change. That will never change. And on that, we can depend on that. We can trust in that. Okay, we can trust in the fact that Yahweh's not going to change. Okay, so in a million years, Yahweh's not going to say, you know what, I changed my mind. I think pork is going to be okay from now on, man. You don't have to worry about that. Pork will never be okay. Okay, pork will never be okay. Yahweh has never eaten pork. Okay, Yeshua never ate pork. Kepha never ate pork. Y'all know that, right? He said, I never eaten the unclean thing. But then, well, I'm not getting into that. But anyway, he never ate the unclean thing. We'll never eat the unclean thing. It will never be lawful to eat the unclean thing. Yahweh shows in those laws that if we do certain things or practice certain activities, we will cause sickness in different organs of our bodies. Each organ of your body is made up of kingdoms of microbes. Those microbes can suffer damage if certain laws are broken. For instance, if you take forbidden meats into your body, such as pork, ham, bacon, ribs, etc., you will cause harm to your body. And this is shown in Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy chapter 14. Why should you avoid pork? Oh, why should you avoid pork? The other white meat. No matter how you think about it, pigs are a rather dirty animal. They are considered the scavengers of the farm, created to eliminate any waste on the farm, often eating anything they can find. This includes not only bugs, insects, and whatever leftover scraps they find laying around, but also their own feces, as well as the dead carcasses of sick animals, including their own young. So they eat their own children. Okay. This, let's see here, this in itself can explain why the meat of the pig can be so dirty, or at the very least not so appetizing to consume. And while being grossed out may or may not be a valid reason not to eat something, it's vital to understand a bit more about pork before reaching your own conclusion. So here's a question. Do we still have to be convinced not to eat pork? No, we're just rehearsing this, right? None of us, we're not tempted by this, are we? Or I was just checking. I don't expect anybody to say yes anyway, though, but, you know, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So you might slip up if you're still desiring pork. I'm going to get you. Sure, we're going to straighten you out here at Yahweh's house if you still kind of got that issue going on there. So Pastor, he writes here, this is an article, it says, Pork 101, know the facts, okay? Know the facts. What's the first positive character trait that's listed in the Peaceful Solution? This young man, he beat y'all all to it. I think he's younger than 10 years old, and he beat y'all to it. Praise Yahweh. And look, I'm not saying that to your shame. I'm not saying that to shame anyone. I'm saying that to reverence Yahweh, because out of the mouth of who? Babes and sucklings, right? Babes and sucklings. Praise Yahweh. So this is what the future holds, man, right? Young men knowing the way of Yahweh, turning people away from sickness, disease, and death. All right, so Pork 101, know the facts, be educated. So the Center for Disease Control and Prevention states that more than 100 viruses come to the United States each year from China through pigs. Of course, you're probably familiar with H1N1, better known as the swine flu. This too is a virus that has made the leap from pig to human. But H1N1 is not the only disease to fear from the pig. There are other sicknesses you can get from eating the meat of the pig. Pork meat is loaded with toxins, more so than most other meats like beef and chicken. Is pork meat toxic? Is pork meat toxic? There are reasons that the meat of the pig becomes more saturated with toxins than many of its counterpart farm animals. The first reason has to do with the digestive system of a pig. Okay, so isn't that laid out in Leviticus and Deuteronomy? Yes. It's laid out in Genesis and Deuteronomy. Not Genesis, I'm sorry. But they knew it in Genesis. But in Leviticus and Deuteronomy, it says if it have split hoof but does not what? Chew the cud, it is what? It's unclean. You can't eat it, right? So chewing the cud has to do with digestion. It has to do with digestion. Okay? Written thousands of years ago by men without microscopes. Written thousands of years ago. They knew it was about digestion. Okay? If it has split hoof but does not chew the cud, it's unclean. It's dangerous. It will kill you. Okay? It will take your life. So here it says, let's see. A pig digests whatever it eats rather quickly, in up to about 4 hours. On the other hand, a cow takes a good 24 hours to digest what it's eaten. During the digestive process, animals, including humans, get rid of excess toxins as well as other components of the food eaten that could be dangerous to health. So pigs, they don't get that. They don't get rid of that. Okay, so in 4 hours, everything they eat is digested, and it's all in their body. You know, cows break it down, get rid of it. Okay, not pigs. They eat it, then they give it to you. Okay, all of the things that are unclean, this is the process. They'll eat it, they don't filter it out, they give it to you. It's stored in their body. It's actually helpful to them. It's a part of what makes them, you know, it's a part of their life. I remember Pastor was talking about like different animals with certain diseases that's not harmful to them, but it's harmful to man. You know, I can't remember which animal is which, but the llama has something like chlamydia or syphilis or something, and the gonorrhea, right? And the horse has something, and it's not harmful to them, but it's harmful when it gets into man. Okay, so Yahweh says, don't eat them. It's simple instructions, you know, simple instructions. Since the pig's digestive system operates rather basically, many of these toxins remain in their system to be stored in their more than adequate fatty tissues ready for our consumption. which Yahweh says, do not eat. Trichinosis, pork meat, and your health. Did you know that pigs carry a variety of parasites in their bodies and meat? Some of these parasites are difficult to kill even when cooking. So how about let's stop cooking them? How about that? One of the biggest concerns with eating pork meat is trichinosis or trichinosis. This worm parasite is very commonly found in pork. When the worm, most often living in cysts in the stomach, opens through the stomach acids, its larvae are released into the body of the pig. These new worms make their homes in the muscles of the pig. Next stop, the unknowing human body who consumes this infected meat, this meat flesh. So let's look at that part, that last sentence again. The sentence again, it says, next stop, the unknowing human body who consumes this infected meat flesh. So unknowing, is that being educated or uneducated? Uneducated. Uneducated. You have to, right at the very top, know the facts. Okay, we have to be educated on what we can and can't eat. The scriptures actually tell us who's supposed to be teaching us the difference between the clean and the unclean, the difference between righteousness and evil, and so on and so forth. So whose responsibility is that? The priest, right? The priest. The priests are supposed to teach the difference between the clean and the unclean, right? But you're right, it is your responsibility to follow this, not to go to the right or to the left. But it's the responsibility of the priest to teach these things. And so, is there anywhere else in the world where you're getting all of this information other than the priest at Yahweh's house? Nowhere else. Now, you may have some people say, don't eat pork. But then, you got this whole Admiral's Feast of crabs and lobsters and, shark fin soup and calamari and all of these, delicacies. Right? You got all of these things, right? Matter of fact, this is how the system works. I remember years ago I was doing some research on some of the dietary laws, and I think the information was concerning the Chesapeake Bay. I think that's what it is. I can't remember where it's at. But in the article, it showed that the fishermen had to stop fishing there because the waters were so polluted. The waters were they were polluted, so they couldn't even eat the fish and things out of it. And so, they were known for catching like different shrimps and lobsters and crabs. I think it was just different things in there. And so over a period of time, I don't remember how many years, but over a period of time, the waters were clean again. And so they went back fishing, right? And so what caught my attention is that how excited they were because of how large the shrimp were, and how large the crabs were. They're like, man, it's bigger than they've ever been. Shrimp is huge, lobsters, crabs, everything's big. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, y'all didn't put two and two together? You didn't catch them for a few years, and then they clean up the water, and so they're huge, and now you're going to go and eat everything they just cleaned up. They didn't put two and two together. They were uneducated. They were like, oh man, praise be the gods. The water's clean and now plenty of shrimp. It's ridiculous. You might as well just get the filter from your fish tank and just eat that. Filter from your shop vac. Go ahead and eat the filter from your shop vac. It's the same thing as filtering out dust, poisons, and all of this. That's what these things, they're living filters. Living filters. And next thing you know, you got them on the grill. Shh. Come on, man. It's ridiculous, But we were all doing this. We're laughing at it, right? But we're really laughing at ourselves because of what we used to do, right? Yeah, we even used to steal a little bit of extra ribs. Maybe, he ain't looking. Well, this is the confusion, though. But we're here training so that we could turn this around, man. It's all about life. And this is the great plan. This is a great opportunity that we have to share what we're learning from Yahweh. It's an awesome plan. Cannot continue to underemphasize that. So continuing back in our lessons on pork. So here it says that at the bottom of page 153, pigs are primary carriers of Tinea solium tapeworm, hepatitis E virus, PRRS, which I think is pronounced porcine or porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome, Nipah virus. And I looked up a couple of these, and the Nipah virus and showed that there can be asymptomatic symptoms, which means that you can have different things and may not even be showing any symptoms. Like you don't think that anything's wrong with you. And usually it's the people that'll say, oh, I've been eating pork and doing this for like 90 years. There's nothing wrong with me. Oh, well, you're going to die here pretty soon. You're not going to live forever. You're not. The only way that you can live forever is by keeping Yahweh's laws. So, people don't, because they don't see the immediate curses, they think that they're okay. And that's the problem. When you don't see the curses, you think that you're okay. And so other things that come from the Nipah virus, acute respiratory infections and encephalitis. You know what that is? Inflammation of the brain. Okay, from eating pork, and that could be fatal. Inflammation of the brain. And this last one here says meningovirus. Okay, meningovirus. I don't know what that is, but I don't want it. Okay, I don't want it. I don't see Yeshua speaking highly of this deal here, so I don't think I want to partake in that. So each of these parasites and viruses can lead to serious health problems that can last for years to come. And again, remember, even death. Okay, even death. So diseases, top of page 154, diseases from pork that pass to humans by Sarah Apatenko, November 17th, 2015. Salmonella. So salmonella is caused by eating food contaminated with animal feces. Okay, so a lot of times we don't even think about that when we hear on the news, oh, there was a salmonella outbreak. What are they saying? There's poop all over the food that you need to take back to the store, right? It has this poop bacteria all over it, salmonella. But it's like salmonella. It doesn't sound that bad, does it? Oh, it doesn't. Salmonella. Just wash it off. Okay. No. So the infection can move into the bloodstream, which can cause death if not treated immediately. And this comes from people who aren't taught to guard the food supply. They're not taught to guard the food supply properly the way that Yahweh says to guard and keep these things. Our lives are in these people's hands. And we hear all the time, salmonella outbreak. Oh, here's another one, E. coli. So it says pigs can transfer E. coli to humans, though they do not usually get sick themselves. The host is immune, right? The host is immune. I'll make you sick, but I'm not going to make myself sick. That's a bum deal. Trichinosis. Pork that is infected with the larva of a worm called trichinella can cause trichinosis. Severe cases can cause heart and breathing problems or death. Listeriosis. Listeriosis is caused by the Listeria monocytogenes, monocytogenes bacteria, and most commonly affects pregnant women, older adults, babies, and individuals with weak immune systems. Okay, so this is Staphylococcus aureus. So Staphylococcus aureus is perhaps one of the most dangerous illnesses that humans can get from eating pork because it cannot be destroyed through the cooking process. I'm sorry I'm laughing, but it's kind of like, okay, stop cooking it. That's the simple solution to it, but it's like, you can't kill it through cooking it. So if you can't kill it through cooking it, then you should stay away from it, And I'm laughing also because I'm remembering, all of these stories that pastors told us, these different examples, how, I can't remember who it was, but he told us about the man, I think it was a brother-in-law or an uncle or something that liked rabbit. Okay, but he said the doctor told the man that, look, when you kill your rabbit, make sure that you're wearing like these gloves, and then to make sure that the fire's at a certain temperature, so because of the diseases that are in rabbits. And it's like you got to put on like these thick latex gloves or rubber gloves or power washing gloves or whatever it is, fireman gloves. I don't know what they were, but you got to put on these thick gloves to keep yourself from becoming defiled by this meat that you shouldn't be eating in the first place. And then there's no guarantee that you're going to cook all of the death out of it. You can cook it to death and it'll still have death in it. So continuing on here, it says here that Sliced meat, such as ham, is a common source of Staphylococcus aureus. Please remember, many of these viruses pass from the body in urine. They are then lifted up through evaporation into the firmament. Think of the water cycle. Water is collected in lakes, rivers, streams, etc., which is where our water supply comes from. Sun heating the water causes it to evaporate, carrying whatever's in the water into the air. The water vapor forms clouds, which produce rain, and the cycle begins again. And you can see this little diagram here at the bottom, starting with collection, evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and it just goes around over and over and over again, the same cycle. Okay, and so if you remember the things that we learned, especially when you're dealing with bodies of water next to like sewer plants and hospitals and things like that, how this medication, is being flushed down the toilets, then it ends up in the water, then it ends up in the firmament. These are facts. Okay, these are facts. And the fish that are by these waters, are contaminated by these things. The shrimp, the crabs, they're floating around with, opioids in them, and all of these different things in the meat. We have to be educated on life. Life. This is life and death. Life and death. This is what it boils down to. From the very beginning, Yahweh said, I set before you life and death. Okay, you can eat from the tree of life and live forever, or you can eat from that tree, which is a mixture, and then you're going to be mixed up and confused, not even knowing what gender you are. Mixed up and confused, doing all kind of things, eating all kind of things, which brings more death. Not just to yourself, but to other people. Okay, to other people, and that's the thing. We have to nip this in the bud. We all have to be in. What's the word I'm looking for? We have to. You don't even let me finish. But you're right, though. You're right. We have to be in unity, right? We have to be in unity with the laws of Yahweh. I'm actually glad y'all didn't let me finish because you're thinking. Okay, that's what these classes are all about. Getting in line with what's being taught at Yahweh's house. So praise Yahweh for you men. It says here, when viruses go from pork to man, they can change, breed by rape, cross, and mutate to many other kinds of viruses that do harmful things to the micro kingdoms in the heavens as well as the micro kingdoms in your body. Read on. Okay, and it's an exclamation point right there. Okay, exclamation point. Read on. Okay, the worms that invade your brain. Okay, the worm, and see, we were just talking about encephalitis, that inflammation of the brain. Okay, and these worms are a part of that. And this is by Mira. Okay, this is from CNN, updated January 20th, 2015. So once you consume them, they can move throughout your body, your eyes, your tissues, and most commonly, your brain. They leave doctors puzzled in their wake as they migrate and settle to feed on the body they're invading. A classic parasite, but this one gets into your brain. Okay, your head. This one gets into your head. It had moved from one side of the brain to the other, and very few things move in the brain, says this British doctor, okay? A man found to have a tapeworm moving inside his brain in 2013. So it went from one side of his brain to the other side of the brain, and the doctors were kind of baffled. It says this form of tapeworm had never been seen before in the United Kingdom. Okay, new gods come up. Okay, a curse causeless will not come. Okay, a curse causeless will not come. Okay, you won't have a brain. You won't have a brain. You won't have a worm in your brain if you don't eat the things that puts worms in your brains. We understand that concept, right? It's cause and effect. It's cause and effect. If you don't eat the worms don't get inside and eat you. Okay? Simple. So here it says, the larvae can insist in the brain or somewhere else, says Bennett. And that means that it's enclosed in a cyst, okay? It can put itself in a cyst or be put in a cyst, okay? So that's what the larvae can insist, or it can be put in a cyst. It says the consequences of these cysts can be tissue damaging, blindness, paralysis, or even death. By sequencing the worm's genes, Bennett hoped to understand the inner workings of the worms to aid further diagnosis and treatment. Really? So he's hoping to learn more about the worm, because people are going to continue to eat pork, so that he can tell them, okay, since you're eating this, here, take this pill. Cha-ching, 41,000 for those high doses, right? Okay, but the true cure for this is to not get it in the first place. And I shouldn't say cure, the prevention is the obedience of Yahweh's laws. Okay, because Yahweh shows that, your diseases are incurable. When you do these things to yourself, a dying you will die. You're going to die when you do these things. That's the law that's set in order. Okay, that's the law that Yahweh established. If you stay away from these things that cause death, then you will not die. Okay, you will not die. Well, you will not surely die. If you do these things, you can eat this. You'll be just like us. Look at how we're... You'll be just like us. Okay, no. Dying. Remember, the scripture shows that even the adversary, Satan the adversary, is going to be not destroyed, but judged. She's going to die. She's going to be brought down to Sheol, the grave, because of her choices, right? When you sin, the soul that sins shall die. Okay, that's the judgment of Yahweh. And sin is the what? Breaking of his law. The sin is the breaking of the laws of Yahweh. So pork tapeworms. There are many forms of tapeworm, 3 of which can readily infect the brain. 3 that can readily infect the brain. From a public health perspective, there's one in particular to watch for. It's mainly the pork tapeworm. That's the main brain one. That's the main brain one, says Helena Helmby from the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. The pork species known as the Taenia solium can infect humans in 2 forms. The first is by eating undercooked pork from infected pigs, resulting in toniasis, an adult worm residing in the intestine. The second, in the larval form, through contact with the feces of any infected pig or human. Okay, it says here, which can go on to infect many tissues. But again, we can't just read over the fact that it says by eating undercooked pork. Okay, it's from eating pork. Okay, it's from eating pork. It doesn't matter if you burn it to a crisp. Okay, and we got the best cooks in the house, so like we know we can burn things to a crisp, right? But that doesn't kill these things. You cannot eat these things. Okay, and I'm not beating a dead horse. I'm trying to make sure that we don't forget what we're learning. Okay, over and over. We're going to be teaching this forever. So I can say it 1,000 times tonight, and you're still going to hear it, 10 to the 30th power more. You're going to hear more. All right, because this is the teachings. These are the things that Moshe, remember, speak these things to the children of Israel. Okay, speak these things and you will have long life. You will have eternal life. Okay, we're going to be teaching these things forever. I'm kind of using that as a disclaimer because I'm repeating myself. So, so here, continuing on, it says that, let's see, larval form. It can result in a condition known as neurocysticercosis. All right. So with that being said, infection of this kind can often cause epilepsy once inside the brain. Almost a third of epilepsy cases in countries where the disease is native are people who have previously had neurocysticercosis, according to the World Health Organization. Now read the law that gives warning to mankind from the Creator Yahweh that forbids eating pig. This law was given to mankind in the beginning and was passed down to us over 3,500 years ago through Yahweh's prophet Moshe. Leviticus 11, verses 7 and 8. And the pig, although it has a split hoof completely divided, yet it does not chew the cud. It is unclean to you. Their meat you shall not eat, and their carcasses you shall not touch. They are unclean to you. Okay, they are unclean to you. I want to read something else. It's not in here. But in Leviticus 11, is it Leviticus or Deuteronomy? Let me find it real quick. Leviticus 11, it's at the end of one of them. So it is 11. Okay, so in 11:43, so we see the instructions that was given to Moshe to teach the children of Israel, which was passed down from generation to generation, you know, and like Yahweh says, throughout all generations. These are the teachings forever. And this is what else Yahweh says in this same chapter, Leviticus chapter 11. In verse 43, it says, you shall not make yourselves abominable with any creature that moves about on the ground. Do not defile yourselves by means of them, nor be made unclean by them. I am Yahweh, your heavenly Father. You shall therefore consecrate and sanctify yourselves, and you shall be holy, for I am holy. Neither shall you defile yourselves with any creature that moves about on the ground. I am Yahweh, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be your heavenly Father. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. This is the law of the animals and the birds and everything that moves in the waters and every creature that moves about on the ground. You must distinguish between the unclean and the clean, between the animal that may be eaten and the animal that may not be eaten. Right? Okay, so did you learn that before you came to the house of Yahweh? No. Okay, no, you didn't. We didn't. Okay, we didn't know these things. So you see how important it is to seek Yahweh, to go to the place where Yahweh chose to place his name and do exactly what you're taught to do. Okay, do exactly what you're taught to do. Don't go to the left or to the right. Do exactly what you're taught to do. Because there's safety, there's eternal life when there's a multitude of counselors. Okay, there's life when you're counseled by Yahweh's administration. Okay, and we have to trust in that. You have to believe in Yahweh by believing in the ones that's teaching you these things. Remember, believe into who? The one sent. Believe into the one sent. And we're all training to be the one sent. Not him, but representing him, right? Okay, so I know you understand, but we're also being trained to be the ones sent. We're all training to be the a voice for Yahweh. Okay, we're all training to be a voice for Yahweh. Okay. Oh, great day. All right. So I'm going to try to sneak in a little bit more here. Pork is not the only thing that can damage the kingdoms of microbes that make up your body and produce what is called sickness and disease. STDs can also cause damage. They are created by practicing certain sexual acts that are forbidden in the laws given to mankind. And okay, so what I'm going to do here, I do want to read some more, but we're out of time, and this kind of changes the tone of the class a little bit. So I'm going to leave this for the great priest to cover next week, and really get into this, you know, without changing the tone of the class too much tonight. So men, remember, you know, you have to put your trust in Yahweh. You have to be educated, because remember what it says in Hosea 4:6. My people are destroyed because of what? A lack of knowledge. My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge. Okay? So we have an opportunity to receive this knowledge from Yahweh, right? From Yahweh's house. But if you reject this knowledge, then what? Yahweh will reject you. Okay, man, may Yahweh bless your understanding. Praise Yahweh.